Look in that camera.
Would you like to join us, please? Have a seat anywhere. Thank you.
Can you get them?
Okay. Well, I thought you signed already, right?
Yes.
Oh, we already did?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you collected them?
I collected it for him, but Mr. Broccoli? Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Shirley Silver Page, and I am the coordinator of the student activities here at our Laurel College Center. Please know that this event is being live streamed, and your photo may be shown either on YouTube or through some of our promotional events for Laurel College Center or Prince George's Community College. Any photos taken, we encourage you to place them on our hashtag, which is hashtag LCC Constitution Day. At this point, I'd like to have my friend and supervisor, the director of Laurel College Center, Nancy Grinberg, come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Shirley. Good afternoon, everyone. And as Shirley said, I'm Nancy Grinberg, and I'm the program director of Laurel College Center. On behalf of everyone at the Laurel College Center, I welcome you, and I thank you for joining us today for this special event celebrating the signing of the United States Constitution 230 years ago. The theme of this year's Constitution Day event is the rights of the immigrants in America. We're very proud of all our students, and especially proud that Laurel College Center is a place where everyone is welcome. The Laurel College Center community has a large immigrant population. This is something that we're also very proud of. These are talented and contributing members of our community, and we're so happy they're here with us. In keeping with the theme of this year's Constitution Day, I would like to read a message from the president of Prince George's Community College, Dr. Charlene Dukes, that she sent to the college community back on September 5th of this year. Earlier today, we heard the Trump administration denounce deferred action on childhood arrivals and the fate of more than 800,000 DACA students to Congress for legislative action and solutions in 6 months. Colleges and universities, including Prince George's Community College, will join with others to continue our efforts to provide education and the necessary supports for our DACA students to succeed. You can count on me to be vigilant in our support of the members of our college and residential communities, and I know that I can count on you. This is an important message from our president, Dr. Dukes, and we thank her for representing the college so well in this effort. I'm also very proud of this event and that it is not only celebrating the signing of the United States Constitution, but also the rights of the immigrants in America. Thank you, Ms. Shirley, and to her students for organizing this event, and a very sincere thank you to our great speakers today. Thank you for coming. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Asiya Mason to share a few words about the significance of the Constitution to her. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Shirley, for inviting me and for organizing this wonderful event. So I am an immigrant myself. I came here from Malaysia. I'm a U.S. citizen now, but I wanted to just share one piece that I hope will stay with you, because our great speakers will talk to you about immigrants' rights and about the Constitution. I want to just share one piece that I heard from someone and it had stayed with me, and I hope it'll stay with me forever. So, talking about the Constitution, what it means to me is that every 4 years in the U.S., there's a peaceful transfer of power. And there's so many things that are included in that. So as immigrants and as students, if you were born in America, but I say as immigrants because a big population at Laurel College Center are immigrants, is that this transfer of power embedded in the Constitution happens without anyone being shot. We fight our issues at the ballot box with our votes. There's no one, being killed by swords, no family being kidnapped, just it happens beautifully, peacefully. And that's because of the way that our government is set up, because of our Constitution. On January 20th, every year, or every 8 years, not every year, every 4 years or every 8 years, one president pack up and leave peacefully while the other one comes in. In other countries, it doesn't happen that way. There's not a transfer of power that happens so beautiful like that, and it's because of our Constitution. It's because of our love of democracy, our love for individual rights, our love for our constitutional rights. So again, for us as immigrants and as Americans, when that happened on January 20th, it includes all the rights that will be talked about today, all the rights about how America is so beautiful in how our Constitution gives us all those rights. So last year, and it's not a political talk, last year everyone was so worried about how this is going to affect America because of the divisiveness and how ugly things got. But this wasn't the first time things got ugly in America. In 1800, it was the ugliest, I think, situation ever happened. But when Jefferson came in and Adam left, it was one afternoon. One came in, one left, and everyone was equal. When President Adam left the White House, he became another citizen, equal to all of us. And that's what happened to President Obama. He left, he became equal citizen, just like the rest of us. And I want us to remember that, in spite of all the issues that's happening now, in spite of what's happening with policies, rules, laws, and I'm so proud that here at Laurel we welcome everyone, that the Constitution, American Constitution, is a beautiful thing, and it serves all of us really well as immigrants and as citizens. There's things that needs to be worked out, but the Constitution is solid. It's our founding, I think, safety net, and I'm so proud that we at Laurel College Center is hosting Constitution Day with two very distinguished speakers. So just remember that about how wonderful and magical U.S., because every 4 years or every 8 years, think about that as immigrants, how lucky we are to be here. And that's a symbol of how wonderful this country is. Okay, thank you.
So this afternoon, I'd like to just give you a little bit of background on our two distinguished guests. Our first one is Pablo Blanc, and he is from CASA. And he's going to tell us what CASA means. I learned a few things about CASA today, but he does a lot with our immigrant population, whether they are documented or undocumented immigrants. And of course, I'm excited to hear what he has to say, and I'm excited to learn about what he has to teach us. In addition to Mr. Blanc, we also have the owner of a law firm, an immigration law firm from right here in Laurel, Maryland, and that is Solomon Bancole. He graduated from Howard University, correct? And he actually also obtained his law degree in 3 states almost simultaneously. Is that correct? His license in 3, which is a true feat. So the reason I say that is to let you know that the information you're going to receive today is from the best of the best. And I'm honored, I'm excited to have them here. And as we get ready for our Constitution Day celebration, I'd like us all to put our hands together to welcome them to our Immigrants' Rights. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. I'm very happy to be here today. I really appreciate Shirley and Laurel College Center for putting together this event. I'm learning about what this center means and the partnership between Howard Community College and Prince George Community College, and I'm really amazed about the model, the unique model that this center is. So I will become an advocate of this center. Thank you also for, we have at CASA, we have a long partnership with Prince George Community College at different levels: workforce development, financial education, free tax preparation. We do a lot of programs together. We receive training from your professionals, and your students many times come to CASA to do internships or enroll as an AmeriCorps members and in other positions. So we are glad to be here and to continue our strong partnership with you guys. So I am the Immigrant Integration Programs Manager at CASA. I have the programs that is citizenship. So we help green card holders to become American citizens. We also do financial education, free tax preparation, and we help undocumented immigrants to enroll in driver license in Maryland. That was one of the big victories of CASA and the community here in Maryland. Today is very important that we are here because we are celebrating the Constitution and Citizenship Day on Sunday, that is on Sunday, 17th. And it's very important because, and I think that is a day that celebrates immigration as well, because every year, for as far as I remember here, the way that the country celebrates Citizenship Day is with the president of the United States attending to one of the oath ceremonies in some part of the country and welcome new American citizens. So that's why we celebrate immigration in a day when we celebrate Citizenship Day. And today is as you may know, are difficult times for the immigrant community and the Latino community in the United States. But we are organized. We are fighting for our rights. We continue trying to get our rights implemented, and CASA is very committed on that. So I will be happy to answer the questions of the students and you guys about the progress that CASA does. CASA is now. It was formerly known as Casa de Maryland, but now we have 2 offices in Northern Virginia and 1 office in Pennsylvania as well. So we are just CASA. And our programs go from advocacy and organizing to providing services. CASA has a very unique model that combines those elements. So there are hundreds of organizations around the country who provide services for immigrants. There are dozens of organizations who do advocacy for immigrant rights, but very, very few organizations combine both and work every day on those 2 arenas. So CASA doesn't need to do a market study to see what is happening with immigrants, what the interests of immigrants are, because every day at one of our 11 locations, we serve hundreds of immigrants, hundreds of low-income working class members coming to us and saying, this is my problem, this is what I need, how can I do it, how can we work together to resolve this issue. And we are happy to welcome all immigrants at CASA from different countries. We we are moving from a bilingual organization, English-Spanish, to a trilingual organization, including French as well, step by step, because we are in this area receiving a big immigration from Western Africa, where so many people now speak French, and we are answering that call, having staff members who are able also to speak in French and including our immigrants from with that language in our programming and in our organizing, etc. So thank you so much for having us, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Well, good afternoon. The beauty of the American system is emboldened in the United States Constitution. It is a law that guarantees that we do not become an authoritarian country, and that the appropriate checks and balances are in place to ensure that we continue to reap the fruits of a democratic system. You know, yesterday I was watching the Rachel Maddow show, and Hillary Clinton was there, and she was promoting her new book. I guess it's called It Takes a Village. And one of the questions or concerns that she raised about the current president was whether or not he's the type of person who was emulating Putin or likely to become Putin. But I looked at the fact that, you know, this is a country where dictatorship at the end of the day will never take its toll. Why? Because, again, you've got the Congress checking the legislature, and you've got the judicial branch checking all the other arms of government. It played out during the first arm of during the first leg of this current regime, when the current president came into power. The critical issue was whether or not the constitutional ban was enforceable. And you can see the outplay or the beauty of the Constitution being displayed here. Because here you had the executive branch, through the President of the United States, saying that, well, through fiat or through an executive order, we're going to ban certain people from coming to the United States. But they forgot that this country is a country of immigrants. And even the president and his wife are immigrants. And the benefits they enjoy in the United States is because of the constitution of this country and the laws. So it's impossible for a human being to come and say that, well, I'm president, and therefore I'm going to ban everybody. And so you set those checks and balances in place. And so it went all the way to the Supreme Court, where at one point the courts interfered and intervened and said, no, you know, the Constitution allows people to migrate from different walks of life to this country. And when you begin to place religious tests in determining who should come to the United States, you run afoul of the U.S. Constitution. And so if anything, I think there's enough to hope for. That if you're an immigrant and you're in the United States, rest assured that you are in the right country, number one. Rest assured that your rights are protected, number two. Rest assured that no matter who sits at the helm of affair in the White House, the checks and balances in place protects your right to the point where it does not get to a point where you get summarily being sent out of the United States. We are, thank you. I mean, the circumstances that we're in right now, you have immigration, at the forefront of so many things that's going on nowadays, evidenced by the recent issues on DACA. On the one hand, you had Congress have a meeting, that's Schumer and Pelosi meeting with the president, where in that meeting they agreed that they were going to extend or put in place a law that permanently puts the protection that DACA affords to students and make it permanent. And then you now have the president now tweet and say, well, wait a minute, in as much as we did meet and as much as there was an agreement, but really there wasn't any agreement. If there's any good news to what you're experiencing here, when you look at the fact that the Republicans control both houses, and you look at the fact that they control the executive arm of government, When you also look at the fact that immigration continues to be a boiler point issue that has to be addressed, I think the present time creates an opportunity for immigration issues to be addressed once and for all. And I believe it will be, regardless of what we're witnessing, regardless of what we're experiencing all over the place. I think that immigration, one way or the other, will be addressed. The president, in so many ways, has this humane part of him that we hear every now and then. I don't think he wants to have this over 800,000 immigrants who are students and protected under DACA deported from or removed from the United States. That picture is not it's not a picture that reflects what America is all about. It's actually not a picture that reflects what the Statue of Liberty is all about. Bring your herded mercies, wanting to breathe free. It's a country that encourages everybody to come here. And it's a country of immigrants as well. So I'm not sure, and I don't believe under any circumstances, that the true intent of the president or even Congress is to have a summary deportation of students from the United States. I think, if anything, the current political climate creates one of the greatest opportunities for us to see some form of immigration reform in place. I like to say positive, and that's what I tell my clients, that at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, there will be some form of immigration reform. DACA, as it is right now, is an excreditory executive order. It doesn't confer any form of citizenship or permanent residency status on anybody. It only allows the student to get some form of work authorization that allows them to work in the United States for the duration of the work authorization, and they can renew it as long as the law is in place. And when you think about it, and when the president says, well, I'm going to throw it back to Congress, realistically it makes sense, because the executive order, nobody can live in perpetuity where you cannot step out and now be prevented from returning because you've overstayed, where the only benefit you enjoy is to go to work and come back, yet you cannot travel outside the United States. And so at some point, Congress has to step in and create something more permanent. And I think that more than ever, that opportunity presents itself in the current political climate. And that is why the president has again sent it back to Congress. And if Congress does nothing, I'm quite optimistic that 6 months from now, he probably will step back in, because again, these are human lives. These are people who work in the military of the United States. These are people who are teachers as well. These are people who are in very important sectors that is relevant to this country. So I'm very optimistic that if Congress doesn't do anything 6 months from now, the president will step in and do something to protect DACA. What's important as it relates to immigration is that whenever you come to the United States, you either come as a visitor or you come here with, without some form of visa. Now, if you come as a visitor, what determines your stay in the U.S. is that 6 months or 3 months that they give you. And often the times folks tend to overstay that period of time. Well, if you overstay, there are consequences that comes from overstaying. The first one is that if you overstay by as much as a year, the law is that if you ever leave the United States, you would not be able to come back for as much as 3 years. Now, if you overstay by 6 months, you cannot come back for 3 years. If you overstay by a year, you cannot come back for 10 years. And so you have so many people who came in probably on a visitor's visa who are now stuck in the United States. They can't go out and they cannot apply for some form of relief because they've overstayed. And in situations like that, often at times it's always difficult to get the student visa as well. Because when you overstay and you're trying to transition to student visa status, the question then becomes, well, if you've overstayed, then those bars have now kicked in to the point where you cannot get student visa here in the United States. So for those who have overstayed, their options are limited in that there is no law right now that confers some form of permanent residency or citizenship status on overstayers, unless Congress steps in and comes up with some form of law that protects them. And that's why you see so many people nowadays in a situation where they cannot work or they cannot go to school because they don't have that authority to stay in the United States. And when you see all this debate all over the place about Congress stepping in and wanting to implement some or pass some form of immigration reform, this is at the core of it, because millions of people are in those shoes where they've come here They've overstayed their status and unfortunately cannot gain gainful employment because they have no immigration options out there that allows them to transition from someone who has overstayed to somebody who can go to school or somebody who can gain gainful employment. But the hope is that with, again, the Republicans controlling the executive arm of government and Congress, that millions of people who are in that situation will get some form of reform. And a lot of people talk about amnesty. And I don't believe for once that this is necessarily a part to conferring citizenship. I believe that almost similar to DACA, whatever law that will be promulgated will allow those type of people to come out of their hiding or wherever it is that has prevented them from going to school or from working, to get some form of work authorization, to remain law abiding, to pay their taxes. And once they fulfill that obligation, they now transition to some form of permanent residency, which is also known as green card, will stay in that position for years. And then as long as they're law abiding and paying their taxes, they probably would then become eligible for some form of citizenship. I also believe that there'll be monetary consequences as well, because past amnesty programs or immigration reforms have always come with some form of monetary sanctions. So when folks say that, well, it's a path to citizenship or citizenship is being conferred, that's not necessarily the case. A lot of times there will be stages where you will just get work authorization, have it for a number of years, become a permanent resident, get your green card, have it for a number of years. As long as you are law-abiding and paying taxes, after those number of years, you then qualify to apply for citizenship, which is the ultimate benefit of being here in the United States. For those whose visa status has not expired, again, the options are very limited as well. It is either you transition to have an employer file for you, or you file for permanent residency through a family member. And those who want to get an employer to file for them, unfortunately, they have to remain in status. Because if you're on an F1 status, for example, and if for some reason you don't attend school, or you flunked out of school, or you just say, well, I'm just going to stay in my house and I'm just going to disregard coming to school, you violated the terms of that visa status. And oftentimes, it's not easy for the school to just get you reintegrated into the educational system. Again, you pretty much have to go back to USCIS and ask to be reinstated. You must have reasons to show the reasons why you have failed to attend school. And if USCIS agrees with your reason, they'll reinstate you, and it's after you're reinstated that you can now continue your academic pursuit. But if you don't do all those things, you're pretty much going through the process of being out of status. And even if you meet an employer who is going to file for you, one of the requirements of employment-based green card is that you have to be in status. And often at times when people come here and they're happy to meet somebody who is willing, ready, and able to file for them, maybe an employer, the problem with that, with the employer filing for them, is that they have a lapse in their status. An employment-based transition to green card requires that your status has not lapsed for even 1 day. So it's important to understand that if your hope is that you're going to have an employer file for you, you have to maintain that lawful non-immigrant status up until the time when the employer files for you, because that's the law. Now, if for some reason you're out of status, the options are also very limited. Often the time, it's either you get a family member, i.e. you get married to a U.S. citizen, and often the times people come and ask questions about the marriage route, and I always tell them that those are routes where they are taken very seriously, because there's so many things going on out there and people get in trouble. And so if you're going to pursue the marriage route towards the green card, you have to understand that it has to be done legitimately, it has to be done properly, and those are applications that takes a while before you actually get a permanent green card as well. Then there's the asylum route. Those are for people who come to the United States fleeing persecution from another country. Well, it's not as easy as just coming here and saying that, well, I'm coming from El Salvador or Nigeria or from some third world countries, and I'm afraid that if you send me back, I'm going to be persecuted. Anybody can make up a story about fleeing persecution. The law is that your story, number one, must be truthful. Number two, it must be credible. And number three, you must have corroborating evidence to support the basis for asylum. So again, it's a welcoming country, and if you have evidence to show that, well, the country where I'm coming from is a country where I'm being persecuted on account of my religious beliefs, on account of my social affiliations or political affiliations, and I have a history of having been persecuted before, such that if you send me back home, there's a possibility that my life will be at risk. Well, this is a country that might welcome you and give you some form of status that allows you to work in the United States and ultimately become a green card holder. So those are the options that you have. I'll be happy to entertain your questions and hopefully answer some of the concerns that you have directly. Thank you.
I would like to comment on about DACA and the situation. So, let's do a little bit of history, and I am not talking about 200 or 200 years ago. I'm talking about 7 years ago. So the DREAM Act was the community members and many a lot of groups were trying to pass the DREAM Act through the Congress. In 2010, it passed the House. But then it was stopped by the Senate, led by Sessions. Sessions was the one who led the Republican Party to stop the DREAM Act. On that situation was when the community member says, look, these people are in real need, and they need some kind of coverage. They need some kind of job opportunities. They need to go to college. They are having now an age where they need to step up and continue their development as human beings and become human beings who can help this country to be greater than this. And it was not easy to convince President Obama to pass to do an executive order and get DACA. I don't know if you remember, but we did hundreds of rallies. Hundreds of people commit civil disobedience in the White House, in Congress, got arrested. Congressmen, leaders of nonprofit organizations, students many people made fast. So it was a huge national fight to get DACA as an executive order. So, and finally, because of the pressure of the community, because of the pressure because of the polls that show that 70% of the people in the country think that DACA students should stay in the country. Finally, President Obama was agree on signing DACA. So now that the government say, okay, DACA is just an executive order, this is not Congress. Some kind of hypocrita. So they are kind of lying, because when they had the chance to make this a law in 2010, they failed, and actually they were proactive in stopping this to becoming a law, as well as what happened with immigration reform in 2015, or when was that that the Senate passed the comprehensive immigration reform, and was the House led by Ryan who stopped the comprehensive immigration reform to become a law. So many people think, okay, no, don't worry, DACA will pass DACA will pass the Congress. Don't take it for granted, because it's not. If we think that the past is a good predictor of the future, be careful, and we need to fight. We don't think that just it will happen because some people say in the TV that it will happen. We will have to activate ourselves again. We need to go to rallies. We need to do exactly the same thing that we did to ask President Obama to sign DACA and do the executive order. Nobody will give DACA applicants. And another issue is TPS. TPS is even more important than DACA, or both things are equally important, because there are like 3 or 4 times more beneficiaries of TPS than DACA, and this administration is thinking in closing the TPS as well. So there is already a deadline for people from Haiti and Sudan, I believe. So it's not only against Latinos, it's against immigrants. So these are the first ones in line to lose their TPS as early as the first months of 2018. And they are thinking in stopping TPS as well for everybody. So what will happen with these people? These people has been living in the U.S. for 20 years probably or more. They have investments, they have built companies, they have employees, they have because of that work permits that they got, they were they have mortgages, what will happen with TPS holders, and we will happen with families, because our families now in the United States, we have mixed families, what we call mixed families. You have in the same families, you have people who was born in the US, you have people who are undocumented, you have people who has a DACA, you have a father probably who has a TPS, and so each family has a lot of legal status. That what will happen with that family if you start deporting one, deporting the other one? So we still need to pass comprehensive immigration reform, but that will not happen, and that we should not take that for granted. We need to fight for that. It's a right that will not given to us if we don't fight for that.
Before we open this up for questions from our guests, our students, I hope you don't mind, I do have one thing that I would like for to discuss just a little bit. And when we did research on the rights of immigrants in America, I used a term, and I said illegal immigrants, and I would love for you to talk about that and help to enlighten us as to what is the proper word to be calling our fellow friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, we believe, we at CASA, we believe that no human is illegal, and we strongly believe that. So we are against calling illegal immigrants. And I will let the attorney here to answer with more law things. But coming to the United States without a status, you are not breaking the law. It's not a crime. It's an administrative offense. So I will let him explain this better. But we strongly believe that nobody is illegal, and so is immigrants without proper documentation for this country to stay.
I mean, just piggybacking on what my friend said, it's true. Immigration laws are not codified in the criminal statute of the United States. You engage in some form of illegality when you violate some criminal law. Immigration law is codified in some form of, it's more of a civil document, such that if you come to the United States and most people who come here come documented. In other words, you get a visa to come here in the first place. And often at times you now overstay. So you're not here illegally in the real sense of the word because you're documented. You had a document that you were inspected at the port of entry, and you were allowed to enter the United States. So you're not illegal, you are documented. There comes a time when that authorization to stay expires. It still doesn't make you illegal, it just makes you undocumented. And even if there will be any proceedings at all in terms of getting someone out of the United States, it's not a criminal proceedings akin to what you call illegal. It's more of a civil proceedings or administrative proceedings where people go before an administrative law judge, and he or she gives you another chance to apply for relief. And if for some reason it's determined that you're not eligible for that relief or you fail, then and only then will the administrative law judge now enter an order of removal from the United States. So it's not an illegal, it's not using the proper term, it's really undocumented.
Thank you. I think we have a question here for our speakers.
Hi, I know you mentioned something about student visa and stuff, but I have a friend. He is a doctor, but he studied at Ukraine, but he came to the country with student visa. I think it expired or it's going to expire in a month's time. And he's done with school. He went to school, and when he went to Kaplan, but his aim is to get a permanent stay right here, but he doesn't know what to do. But I think many people are giving him advice. Some said he should go back to the school and apply again, find another course somewhere so he could update. I don't know, but I'm trying to get more advice I can tell him so he doesn't get kicked out or something.
One of the beauty of the F1 visa, which is also known as the student visa, is that it's designed to have people from other countries come to the United States, receive an education, receive the benefit of a first grade education here, and hopefully return to their home country and use the knowledge that they've acquired to make their countries a better country. But does that always happen? No. Why? Because of the beauty of the United States. Often the times people come here and they decide that, well, I'm not going back. And it's not illegal. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you now have to follow certain steps and procedures to get yourself to remain here in the United States. To answer the question you just posed, this person typically should be entitled to what you call practical training. Usually once you're done with your F1 student status, the law allows you to engage in some form of practical training with a company. It requires a company who is ready, willing, and able to hire you, and typically immigration will issue you a work authorization for that limited purpose of essentially putting your theoretical knowledge into some form of practical application. And so you have that 1 year of engaging in practical training with a company. And I would recommend that he should look around and see what company can hire him. It's always better to do it before the expiration of your F1 student status. So you're interviewing and you're meeting with companies, and once they indicate an interest in hiring you, then you can apply for the work authorization and you're allowed to work there for a year. Often the times it's with the same company that you now move to the next stage. Because don't forget that after a year you have to go back home. Then the question then becomes, if I don't want to go back, what should I do? That's where the green card comes into place. And most companies will now take the extraordinary process of now filing for that student to gain permanent residency in the United States. The process is not as easy though, because the law requires the employer to test the labor market. In other words, if you're going to hire me to work as a business degree holder with your company, after or before the expiration of my 1 year, you the employer has to go and advertise that position in the community and prove to the U.S. Department of Labor that you cannot get suitably qualified Americans or permanent residents to fill that position. And therein lies the problem. Because oftentimes, if a country has a high unemployment rate and an employer advertises the position, what happens is that you're going to get a lot of applicants. And the law mandates that the employer has to hire those applicants. So where the F1 student is in a unique profession, usually doctors or scientists, it's usually easier for them to transition with the employer, because when they advertise those positions, it's unlikely they'll get a lot of applicants because of the unique nature of their qualification or what they've studied here in the United States. So yes, he has to get that work authorization and impress upon the employer to begin the process of filing the green card application for him before the expiration of his 1 year practical training. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All protocol duly respected. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Alice Mfomen. I'm a student here. I would like to start by really thanking whoever thought of Laurel Community College. It's a very wonderful idea because I am an HCC student. I live in Lanham. My mom lives in Hydesville. I have 2 kids. So Laura is like the ideal place for me. Like, it's halfway the commute to HCC, and it's halfway the commute to my mom's place to drop off my kids when they can't go to daycare. So it's really practical. Thank you. I have 2 American-born kids, and I'm an immigrant myself, as you can see and you can hear from my tongue. And I'm a proud beneficiary of the U.S. immigration system, for which I'm very grateful. I have a few questions. And my first question is, every day as I go around, I experience racism in very subtle ways. Sometimes it's not so obvious, but very often I can tell. I'll give you an example. I saw an advert and it was for a house, all utilities included for $1,600, 2-bedroom. I said, wow, this is a deal. I called immediately to go check it out. And then I realized it was a condo. It's not an apartment complex. And then the lady kept asking, do you live alone? I said, no, I have 2 kids. Do your kids go to daycare? I said, excuse me, ma'am, why do you ask all these questions? Oh, she went on and on and on. And then I was with a friend who is a Native American, and I said to her, please call this number. I would really like to know what's going on. She called, oh, please come over immediately. How soon do you think you can be here? Yeah. And I called back the lady and I said, ma'am, the person who just called you is my friend. And I passed over the phone and I said, you have to be very careful. Don't judge me by my tongue. You can never be me and I can never be you. No matter how much I try to speak like an American, I can never be an American. This is my identity. So I guess my question is, what's an appropriate way to respond to discrimination without being antagonistic, without being disrespectful?
Well, I am really sorry for that experience, but one of the things that makes America great, and it wasn't because President Trump thought of that slang, make America great again. America has always been a great country, and it will always continue to be the greatest country on the face of this earth. So it's not new. It is a country that is walking towards what you could call a more perfect union. It's not perfect by any shred or imagination. So every day when we encounter what my sister just mentioned, it's not because there are no laws in place. And that's why I say it's working towards a more perfect union. There are housing laws and housing discrimination laws in place that clearly states at federal and state level that you cannot discriminate in housing on account of someone's race, national origin, and so on and so forth. So in the situation where you feel that you've been discriminated against, you can start out by complaining to the state. There are appropriate units within the state level where you can report them, and you can even go a step further by filing appropriate civil rights actions against them, either at the federal or at the state level. Because that's the only language companies like that do understand. When you take them to court and you let them know that, yes, I might have an accent, yes, I might be seen as an immigrant, but it's a country of laws. And I'm going to apply the laws in this situation, and the courts will honor the application of that law to that scenario. So don't sit back under any circumstances when you witness things like this. Be proactive, because that's what gets us towards that perfect union that we're marching towards.
There's no proof.
Well, the proof is in your witness, the person who called and was treated differently. So if you were to go to court, and that's how evidence is established, if you were to go to court, you will testify, that witness will testify, the judge or the jury then makes a decision whether or not this is a case where you've been discriminated against. So that is the proof here. Okay.
And also, I'm sorry about your situation, and unfortunately, it's not only you, and it's not only in renting an apartment how immigrants, and not only immigrants, African Americans and LGBT, any minority group is treated. So you have the chance to fight individually by yourself with find an attorney, but you may have the chance to get your voice here and get some results, but usually is working with others how you get the progress. Is by yourself is very difficult. CASA, for example, has a huge program, and our legal department at CASA is focused on immigration, but also in housing and labor, because many people take advantage of immigrants. They hire immigrants, but they don't pay them, because they think that because they may be undocumented, they will not complain. So CASA every year recover over $500,000 of unpaid salary. So that's the level of discrimination that sometimes in the real life that we immigrants live. And so, and our organizing department also works with renters, so we can come together and collectively talk to, particularly this building. You can go and talk to the administration, and if you talk by yourself, it's very difficult that they will hear you. But if you work with the endorsement of CASA or any other organization who is organizing renters in this area, you will be most likely to be here, because they will be afraid of having the media. The next day they know that if they don't answer, the next day they will have the media in their door, and many other issues. So I would encourage you to look for other people who are suffering the same struggle and work together and make your voice hear.
Hi, hello. Oh, thank you for coming. I just got my license some few months ago, and I just want to find out. I'm documented, and I have someone who's undocumented. If we are stopped by the police, firstly, me, I'm documented. What should I do? Or the other person who is undocumented, what should he or she do? Thank you very much.
Well, again, the beauty of the system lies in the U.S. Constitution. It's that laws that is enshrined in this booklet that prevents the police from using their powers to act in an arbitrary form or manner. So going to the question that you just raised, the police must have some form of reasonable basis or articulable basis to stop you in the first place. It's not a country where by fear or just for any reason a police can just stop you and demand questions or information from you. There has to be a basis for the stop in the first place. So often the times if you have a broken headlight or tail light, if you're speeding, if you don't have your lights on, then you create a basis for that stop. The Constitution requires that there has to be an articulable or reasonable basis to stop anybody in the first place. So if you feel, and one of the first questions you ask when you stop is that it's okay to ask a police officer, what's the reason for the stop? And he or she has an obligation to tell you the reason for the stop. Either it's your ma'am, your lights are broken, blah, 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 blah. And the first thing is that they demand your registration and your license, which you have an obligation to provide to them. Because by law, you cannot ride the streets of this country without those documents, and it's for safety reasons as well. That's just law. And if you provide it, often at times, if nothing major has happened, the police will let you go. With regards to the undocumented person, you have no obligation to tell the police your immigration status. No, you don't. You don't. So if a police officer were, and neither do you as well, even though you're a documented person and you're a U.S. citizen, you don't have an obligation to tell them that, well, I'm a permanent resident or I'm a U.S. citizen. It's beyond the scope of what they're empowered to do. They're not empowered to start inquiring about people's immigration status. Even though, and you see that fight being played out all over the states, this sanctuary city state, where police officers are saying, listen, we're not going to be used to enforce immigration laws. We have our own issues as it is already, helping to make sure that crime is minimized and so on and so forth. We're not going to become ICE. And therefore, when we stop people, we're not going to start inquiring about their immigration status. And some countries, some counties, some states have actually made it mandatory that you can do that. So as far as I'm concerned in Maryland, that inquiry cannot be made in the first place about your immigration status. And so if it's ever made to the undocumented person, he or she has the right to remain silent. Is that law that is enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. If you're going to charge me with anything, the burden is on you to prove it. I don't have to make the case for you. So that way I would assert my right to remain silent. Okay? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. So I want to ask, if you're like underage, right, and you're a green card holder, how long does it take to be a citizen?
Well, ideally, you must have had your green card for their age requirements. You must have be at least, is it 21 or 18 years old? 18, and being a permanent resident for 5 years to now apply for citizenship. Yes.
So that is a very, very important question, because many people think that you come to the country and the next day you are a citizen of the United States. Especially the people who are against immigrants. They think that people will come here and they will vote the next day and they will become citizens. They have a real ignorance about the immigration system. I always say that immigrate to the United States is not a non-stop flight. It takes a lot of stations, you need to go to a lot of airports before becoming a citizen of the United States. And you go through many different status. You may come with a visa, then go to another visa, then finally in some way you can get your green card. And then once you have your green card, you have to wait at least 5 years to apply for your citizenship. And 3 years if you have been married with the same American citizen and live with that person. So after those 5 years, you can apply for the citizenship, and the citizenship process is It's not very difficult, but you need to do something. You need to undergo a procedure, and usually you need help, legal help, and other kind of help. So at CASA, and this is because we are in Citizenship Day, at CASA we are doing, and many other community organizations around the country, together with AILA, that is the immigrants law attorneys in the area. We are doing citizenship fairs all over the Washington metropolitan area on September 23. So if someone who is listening to this video or this conference, if you are a green card holder, or if you know someone who is a green card holder, this is a great opportunity for you to become a U.S. citizen. Go to one of the clinics, call to CASA, call to Catholic Charities, or any other community organization who do citizenship, and go, because in September the 23rd, the next Saturday, we'll have a huge clinics and a lot of help. A lot of attorneys are joining these efforts to help people to become citizens. Because the delay that now USCIS has in processing the citizenship applications, it used to be 5 months. In some states it used to be 4 months. Now they are in an average of 9 months. So if you want to vote in November the next year for the next election, go to the clinics now in September, October, because this may be the last opportunity that you may have to become a citizen on time to vote in the November election.
Just to quickly add to that, it's important to understand that to become a U.S. citizen, in addition to meeting the age requirements and the statutory requirement of having your green card for 5 years, if you're unmarried, and if you've got it through marriage, 3 years, the law requires you to be a person of good moral character. The term good moral character has a very wide definition. And often at times when people file for citizenship and they've been arrested and they've been convicted, they fail to pay taxes, they're victims of, they have been involved in some form of domestic violence, or even DUIs, driving under the influence, DWIs, driving while intoxicated. Those become issues that prevent you from acquiring that good moral character that the law requires you to have when you file. So I always caution clients that if you want to become a citizen of the United States, you have to understand that the laws are there for a reason. They have to be obeyed and they have to be complied with, because good moral character has a very wide definition. And USCIS officers are allowed to apply it on a wide scale. And so on the time you apply for citizenship, if those issues are there, there's a likelihood that citizenship will be denied. The same thing applies to those who are on a green card holder. If you're a green card holder, it's not the same as being a citizen. It can be taken away just like that. And so if you commit crimes, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's driving under the influence of alcohol, whether it's driving while intoxicated, whether it is theft, whether it's simple assault, all of those things can in and of itself, not only will the person be dealing with a criminal charge at the state level, often at times once the sentence has been once the person is done with, ICE will put, Immigration and Customs Enforcement will put a detainer on that person, and once they're done at the state level, they are then sent over to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Why? Because a criminal offense has been violated. Why? Because you're not a U.S. citizen. Why? Because you're a permanent resident. Why? Because we can still take that green card away from you because you violated the laws. And so what they do in essence is that once they determine that you've done with the state and they send you over to ICE, they want to send you out of the United States because you're not a U.S. citizen. So it's important to understand that being a permanent resident does not confer on you those benefits and the beauties of being a U.S. citizen. The green card can still be taken away if you commit any of those major or minor offenses. So be very, very careful.
Hi, I'm Harlan Tolentino. My grandfather was a veteran, so he was a part of World War II. So he came here in United States because, I think they were given the chance to during that time. I came here because of a petition. So my grandfather petitioned my mom, my dad, and my 2 brothers. I wasn't born yet during that time. the petition took very long, to the extent that my grandfather died last 2003, and then the petition was continued by my aunt. And then under immigration law, please rectify me if I'm wrong, the only children that my parents could bring is their children below 21 years of age. My question is, why is the process taking so long, to the extent that the person who were petitioned exceeded the age requirement?
Well, you brought up an interesting question, because in some instances where this petition takes so long, often the times at the time the application is filed, the age is frozen, so that if you now grow, you're older than 21 by the time it gets to you, or by the time you come, they're not going to take you at that age. They're going to take you at the time you filed. How old were you at the time you filed? So, and again, the law is settled because they recognize that this application takes a while. At least for some of the cases that I have handled, where you're trying to bring family members from abroad and you have children and all that stuff, again, those age are frozen at the time you file. And so if it takes years later, whether you become 21, 28, and 30, they're not going to penalize you because of that, because they realize that it's their fault. You'll still be able to come because you filed at the time you were less than 21 years old. But one needs to get more information from you to find out what's going on in that regard. I believe they should still be able to, yes. If the application was filed prior to 21 years old, yes. They're frozen at that age, yes.
I was just thinking, it's not reasonable to wait for more than two decades for the process of...
You're absolutely right. You see, Congress allocates a certain number of green cards to that category per fiscal year. And so you have a lot of applicants pursuing a very limited number of green cards. That wait goes on and on forever. That's really what's at some of the climax of the immigration debate. And that is whether or not the quota allocated to some of those categories, whether they should be increased, such that families are not waiting for 10, 5, 16, 20 years before they can bring their loved ones into the United States. It's nothing you did wrong. It's just that that's part of the broken system, and that will enshrine part of the debate in that comprehensive immigration reform that we're hoping at some point will get passed. You're welcome.
Do we have any more student questions? Okay. So I'm just going to ask for a conclusion. You guys have done a wonderful, wonderful job. I'm really happy to have learned so much. So if you'd like to give us a conclusion or some tidbits that we should know, we'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, again, my gratitude to Laurel College Center for having the foresight to have a day like this. I think that it's a reflection of the care that the organizers and those who are in charge of the center have for their student population. They don't have an obligation to do this, but when they go into this aspect of looking after you and looking after the student population, it shows that there is that care and tenderness in their heart to want to reach out to help. And I applaud them for this type of effort in that regard. The only thing I would say is that, for immigrants, there's nothing to be afraid of, in my opinion. Yes, a lot of political will, a lot of demonstrations, a lot of marching has to be in place to get things to move. And ultimately, that's what this country is built upon. Nobody rests on their laurels in getting things achieved. You don't get your degree by just sleeping in your room. You get your degree by coming to classes. The same thing holds for getting anything done in this great country of ours. To get Congress to move, to get the president to understand that they are human beings that are involved, it takes action. Legal action, not illegal actions of people such as yourself, to get the word out there that we're here, we exist, and we need to be heard. Because nobody except those Indians can claim that they are the real owners of the United States. Everybody is an immigrant. And if those laws were there to protect them back then, there's no reason why those laws should not be there to protect you now. Thank you.
I will ask the students why you wake up this morning and came to college this morning. Is why you didn't stay at home waiting for someone to go to your house and give you the opportunities that you deserve. Because it will never happen. Nobody will knock your door at your house and give you opportunities, give you knowledge, give you anything. So you go to college, you study, you make the effort, and once you have the degree, then you have more opportunities. The same thing will happen with immigration reform. We cannot wait at home that someone will in Congress or wherever, in the White House or in the Supreme Court, will give us the opportunity that we deserve. We need to fight for that. We don't go to college to fight for that. We work with others. We organize with students. We organize with other community members, with unions, with community faith organizations, and because we come together and because we go and knock their doors, then we are here and then we gain our rights. So I will encourage all the students here in Laurel, but also in Prince George Community College, to go to CASA or to go to any other kind of organization that you would like to join and organize yourself, become organized, and ask for your rights. Because especially at this time, don't think that in 6 months Congress will pass DACA just because it's the right thing to do. We have been saying that it's the right thing to do for the last decade, for the last 20, 30 years, and never happened. So it's not just because it's the right thing to do that we will gain the days. It's because we will fight for that. So please take action. Don't stay at home and fight for your immigrant rights.
So in conclusion, again, I want to thank everyone. We do have some light refreshments for everyone. Once again, my name is Shirley Silver Page, and I am the coordinator for student events. This is what it's all about, and I encourage and I challenge you students to get out there and do what you need to do. We're here one time, and if you came to any of my orientations, what I said was, I double dog dare you. I double dog dare you to get involved in your community. I double dog dare you to find out what's right. It's all about learning. And around you, you have the best of the best of the best. This is Laurel College Center, and we're here for you. This is your college, and we're going to do what you want. So come see me, room 205. Come see any one of us. And these are my road dogs right here. Sorry to say, they're in the front, all four. But come and see us, because this was just an idea a few weeks ago. I just picked up the phone. I called Mr. Pablo and said, hey, can you do this? He said yes. You know, Mr. Boncoli, he goes to church with somebody that I know in the office, and I said, please, 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 can you get him? And he said yes. And what you will find is there are more people who are willing to tell you yes than to ever tell you no. So again, I thank you all, and
I just want to make a quick announcement.
Thank you.
There's a few students who did not sign in. If you could sign in. And Prince George Community College sent some food and refreshments. And on the table, there's bags that they have prepared with nice goodies for all of you. And next to it is the book Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. There's nothing more sexy than, I'm serious.
Thank you. Oh,
there's
sorry.
nothing more sexy when you are at a coffee shop or at a bar and you're having a conversation and someone said something about this law and you're like, hang on 1 second, and you flip out your Constitution book, you're in. So please make sure, because she worked really hard to prepare all the goodie bags and the Constitution books, and please grab them.
All right, do you want to come up here? All right, thank you guys. Thank you all. Oh, can we do some photos?